You're watching The Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates. You're listening to Absolute Empowerment with Coach Jeff Connors on The Sports Objective. Join Coach C, the USA Strength and Conditioning Hall of Famer, every Monday night as he and a variety of guests, including former players, former and current coaches, pastors, and others will discuss relevant issues in coaching today's athlete, with the goal of equipping the athlete and those coaching them with the physical, mental, and spiritual armor necessary to live their best life. Here's Coach Connors.
Welcome to Absolute Empowerment with Jeff Connors. Tonight we have first-round draft choice, all-pro linebacker and Super Bowl champion Robert Jones in the house, and I was privileged and honored to be able to coach Robert. In 1991, we were 11-1. I think I was with Robert about 7 or 8 months, and it's just an honor and a privilege to have you in the house, Robert. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Coach Connors. I appreciate it so much.
Robert, the nature of this podcast, it is a Christian podcast. So we do some testimonies on here, and, we talk about a lot of things with regard to spiritual commitment. Even though I spent that 7 or 8 months with you, we've talked several other times, maybe bits and pieces about things that happened to you as a very young man, a very young child. What we like to do is we like to go way back and tell the story of all the things that people who are highly successful overcame in their life to be successful. And then, of course, anything that we can talk about with regard to spiritual power is also something that we want to highlight on the show. But Robert, if you would, I'd really love to go back and have you tell your story, because you overcame so many things in your life, so many hurdles, tragic things, and somehow, became one of the most successful people that ever came through East Carolina University. So where can we start?
All right. I will start right here, Coach Connors. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it with all of my heart, because I'm understanding already where this video is going and how it's going to minister to a lot of young athletes and maybe some current athletes, that's playing in the NFL, or just minister to people. So, I would say that I'm going to share some things that you never knew about, that East Carolina never knew about. I'm just ready to share it. But, when you believe in God and when you trust God and when you live that life, you're going to be tested. You're going to be tested. And you got to understand when you're being tested and that you're going through the fire, knowing that if you have the faith that you say you have and you believe the God that we trust and believe in, then he'll bring you through it. So I have a testimony to share with you that even a second chance, when I say a second chance, I've been thinking about a book and all of that stuff. I'm like, and calling it the second chance. But I'll start from the beginning and just share with you and the audience about my life as a young kid. Like, obviously I was born to my mother Pearl Inez Jones and born to Benny Jones, and I would speed this thing up. But I will give you details step by step so people can really see where I came from and the things that I've overcame. But I was born to those two people. My mother was 36. My father was 46 when I was born. And right at about 3 to 4 months old, my uncle tells me the stories of all the fights and marital disputes and domestic violence that they went through had gotten to a point where it led to him taking a gun and shooting my mother in the chest while she was nursing me. Um, I do not know, other than the grace of God, how the bullets missed me, but it missed me because they said I was being nursed when she got shot in the chest by him. So either he was a great shooter or it was just the blessing of God that nothing hit me. But it killed her instantly, and I was covered in her blood. And so when I look at things like that, already it's like, covered in the blood of Jesus, because I know y'all have heard of that saying before, but I just kind of accept it as that's what I was covered by the blood of Jesus. I felt like I've always had people looking after me. I've always had people in my corner because I tried to do everything right. Even with you, Coach Connors, I tried to do everything right, and that was show up on time. When you show up on time, when you respect people, when you give them what they are expecting of you, then they would go miles and miles and miles for you. So I was taught that as a very young kid. So for me, I had a desire. I had a desire to have a family one day because now, instantly as a young baby, I got taken in by my aunt and uncle, who I'm so thankful for. They took me in, and that's the only mom and dad I knew. So I called them mom and dad. At 3 months old, you know, when you're starting to talk and when you're starting to crawl and you're starting to walk, you learn the people around you, you start calling them mom and dad. So I call my aunt my mom, and I call my dad, my uncle, my dad. So um, they were blue collar workers. They really didn't have any education, as far as school. They had a lot of common sense. They knew how to survive. They knew how to work jobs. Um, my uncle slash dad was um, he was what I call a hustler, man. He did anything he could to keep our family fed and a roof over our head. And I can say I had great Christmases. I had all the things that a little kid would desire, but it was what I knew. I mean, if I didn't know it, and if I didn't know there was more out there, it was okay because it was what I knew. But he made my Christmases great. But he was a hard worker. He taught me everything from yard work to roofing, construction, all the things that I do today in my business. That's what he taught me. So as I move forward in life, obviously I got interested in football, and I had the kind of dad that if if you want to know what kind of dad I had, then go watch the movie Fences. And when you watch the movie Fences, it is, when I said dad, my uncle slash dad. When you watch the movie Fences, I swear Denzel Washington must have gone to my hometown, talked to my dad, and just said, "Hey, tell me about your life," because that's exactly how I grew up. I had to sneak and practice football. I had to, lie and say I'm staying after school to study or whatever, because from where I was from, there was nobody that really ever made it and done anything successful. So they weren't sports people. My dad, my mom, they weren't the type of people that they look forward to Friday nights to watch games, any of that stuff. It was work, 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 work. And my dad would tell me, you better get down at the A&P and get your job, and work in the meat department or something, get a job and get promoted, and maybe you can be a manager or something like that. When you get out of high school, you have a degree in high school. And then he was more of that guy because that's all he knew. He was a blue collar type guy. And it just annoyed me because when I used to watch television and I used to watch those guys playing professional football, I used to say, they are human too. They're just like me. How did they get there? So I didn't know. But luckily, you know, I was brave. When I say I was brave, I was sneaking around, but I was sneaking for good reasons, not sneaking for bad reasons. I never snuck out of the house. I never smoked. I never drank. I never did drugs. I never did none of that. But when I was sneaking to go practice football. I was sneaking to, do what I wanted to do to pursue my career. So people don't know. And it doesn't mean that he was a mean guy. My dad, he was mean, but he was a protective guy. But he wasn't being mean from a perspective where, you know, he didn't want me to do anything. He just didn't think and never seen and never knew that anybody could be successful, playing sports. So I'm gonna just call it what it is. He said, "You'd never get anywhere in this world playing football for the white man." So when he said that, I just refused to believe it. I just refused to believe it. So I had a high school coach named Billy Boswell who recognized my talent right away. My education coming from a household where my uncle slash dad quit in the ninth grade and my mom quit in the sixth grade. Um, you know, I think my whole school year from first grade to 12th grade, I never had a parent to come do a parent teachers conference to discuss my grades. So coming out of high school, I wasn't prepared at all for anything academically. Um, so for me, it was like I want to go play college football, and so I go talk to my high school coach, and he happened to be the defensive coordinator, defensive line coach named Billy Boswell, and so he became that father figure away from the home. So I looked up to Billy Boswell because he he was interested in me. He saw a kid that was obedient. He saw a kid that really wanted to do the right thing. So he got me with the right guidance counselors. He got me with the right people. I started taking algebra classes. I started taking geometry classes. I started doing all the things to get eligible, just to be eligible to go to college. And by the time I graduated from high school, um, I do not have all the academic requirements, the core curriculum classes, the GPA to get into a school somewhere. And at that time, East Carolina, Virginia Tech, and a couple other schools had recognized my talent, but all schools but East Carolina pull away from me because I didn't have the academic standards. And so I remember the recruiter at that time, name was Chuck Driesbach, was a running back coach. Chuck says, "I like you, Robert, and I will. What I'm going to do is that we want you to come to East Carolina, and you can do a Proposition 48." So Proposition 48 at that time means that the first year you come to East Carolina, um, you won't be eligible. You have to academically prove yourself, and then you can. Once you prove yourself academically, then you'll be eligible to play the very next year. So instead of going to East Carolina that year, this Billy Boswell said, "Why don't we try Fork Union Military Academy?" So I go to Fork Union. I spent a semester there, probably have one of the greatest football years of my life up until that point, because I mean, it was unbelievable the way I ran the field, um, and just did the things I did. By the way, they put me in the Fork Union Hall of Fame about 4 or 5 years ago, which I was very excited about. And John Schumann said I was the best athlete that ever came through Fork Union. But anyway, I had a great year at Fork Union. And then after that year at Fork Union, here it is. I take the SATs and boom, I get the score I need. I think I score an 800 on the SATs, and I do real well. And next thing you know, I have schools all over, and even Virginia Tech to come back. I've been a guy that's been loyal wherever I go, and whoever I deal with, I'm just a loyal person. So for me, um, because East Carolina never turned their back on me, I didn't care about the Notre Dames or the UCLA's, Missouri, the schools that offered me scholarships when I came out of Fork Union, and I had them. I think I had almost every school except Florida schools that offered me, but my commitment was to the team or to the school or to the people that be at that time, Art Baker and his staff. And so obviously I went to East Carolina, and I know, Coach Connors, that you weren't there, my first couple of years there, but nobody can ever tell you that I was not diligent in the weight room. So for me, I was a small guy because where I came from, my hometown, we didn't have a weight room. I used to lift weights with a broomstick and cinder block bricks on the side, and it would slide off. I'm like, I did anything I could to try to prepare myself. I had guys that I looked up to that played football. They never made it to the big level, but I had guys like Lawrence White, in high school. When I was in the seventh grade, I looked up to him, and I'm like, I watched him work out, and he was with a family that was a little more well-to-do than we were, so he was able to afford, you know, weights. And at that time, I know you guys remember the little cement weights with the gray
Oh, yeah.
plastic around it. Yeah. So Lawrence had that, and I'm like, I dream of having a weight set like that, but I didn't. I just lift with cinder blocks, and I'm like, man, when I get to a weight room, I'm going to lift, and I'm gonna become big. I'm gonna become strong. And the first time I got to a really organized weight room. Fork Union had a fair weight room, but it wasn't what you call ideal. But it was enough for me to start lifting. But by the time I got to East Carolina my freshman year, I think I was 195 pounds. I'm supposed to be playing linebacker. But I was committed, I was dedicated, and at that point, I started lifting, and I mean, I would not miss a day. Jay Omer had to run me out of the weight room, saying, "That's too much. You're doing too much. You need to give your body a rest," because I knew nothing about lifting. I just wanted to lift, whether it was squat, whether it was bench press, whatever it was. I did what they asked, and I just worked at it, worked at it, worked at it, worked at it, worked at it. Um, Sophomore year, did the same thing. And then my sophomore year, coaches changed. Art Baker's out, Bill Lewis is in. And then, I think he kept the same. Yeah, I think Jay Omer was still our strength coach. But he was looking to make that change. I don't know technically what happened during that time, but it really didn't matter to me because whoever came to be the strength coach, it's like I'm like, I think Coach Connors, even when you came, I can't say you ever had a problem with me in the weight room. Did you?
No, in fact, I never had a problem with anybody really. I mean,
Yeah.
when I got there, there was great enthusiasm. People were chomping at the bit to work. The guy that was there that was leaving, I can't remember his name, but I actually had to interview with him, and I guess Henry Van Sant wanted me to just get a little perspective on the program. So I interviewed with that strength coach before he left. And then I found out when he left, he said, "Y'all got a leg freak coming in here." So, but he was probably pretty right about that. But yeah, I was very excited, very cranked up to come to ECU, and the reception was wonderful. I mean, I was the only strength coach that whole summer. I had no assistant, no GAs or anybody till Tom Howley got there, I think, toward the fall.
Yeah.
But that was a great summer. I enjoyed every day, and and really, I really enjoyed the players because everybody welcomed me with open arms, and we did some tough running that summer too.
We did tough
Yep.
running, but it was great for me to do that. I welcome anybody that knew what they needed to know about that to get me ready to play, to get me better. When you came in, the knowledge and everything that you instill, I absorbed all of that. And sometimes some things happen right at the perfect timing, because a lot of things that you taught me, I took into the NFL. A lot of things that Coach Huxtable taught me, I took into the NFL, like the keys of reading, like some stuff I implemented the plays that we had to implement, in the pros, but some basic skills like, hey, you know, still today, I don't care if the offense is more of a passing geared offense. The guards are never going to lie to you. They're never going to lie. And that's what Coach Hux taught me. So a lot of stuff that I learned, that's why I think it was planned. Like God says, I have a plan and a purpose for your life. You know, I could have gone to Notre Dame. I could have gone to Miami. I could have gone to, some of these big schools, Michigan, Oregon. Uh, um, I could have gone to some of these schools that unbelievable. But why East Carolina? Because there was something in my heart that felt loyal to some people that were loyal to me. And I think, Art Baker should be commended for that, because he stepped out and was willing to offer me something. He saw something in me that was worthy of giving that scholarship to. Whether I got the grades or not, they were going to take a chance on me. That's how much they believed in me, and that's how much I believe in them. So they taught me what loyalty is all about. They taught me that. And you know getting there with you, Coach Connors, and understanding how you got to protect your body, because the way kids train now versus back then, you didn't have all the technology. You didn't have all the stuff. We just draw what's those little cans of milk that we used to drink? That was it.
Yeah.
That was it. That was it. But it was a great time. It was a part of my life where I still remember and I carry and I share, just how that part of my life plays such a instrumental part of me growing up and learning how to become a professional athlete. And then of course we have the great year um that we had in 1991, and go on to play the Peach Bowl. And then I get drafted. Of course I get married. I get drafted, I get married, and then I have kids, and then I have I would say, a great 10-year career in the NFL with Dallas, Rams, the Dolphins, and the Washington Redskins. And I wouldn't change anything that, because the way God works, if you are obedient, if you do everything He asks, things will unfold that way. So there's some things that I'm a young guy. I make mistakes. I do things, like any other typical person. When you turn on the television, you see this person, like say for instance Tyreek Hill, just settled with somebody that he just hit in the back of the head or something. And I'm like, man, it's just a stupid old boy. And I'm like, wait a minute, Rob, you were stupid too. You did stupid stuff too. Um, it's just a matter of you having somebody a little bit older that you can look up to, that can tell you, that can talk to you and teach you how to not do some of those things. So so I made it a point to not criticize these youngsters so much. Just see like what's the root of their problem. What's the basketball player that plays for Memphis Grizzlies? That keeps getting in trouble with the guns and stuff. I forget his name, but anyway.
Yeah, you're asking the wrong guy. I grew up wrestling,
Yeah.
man, so I don't even follow basketball very much.
But people would know who he is, so they know who I'm talking about. But anyway, I blame his dad, because he should be in his ear. I'm in my boy's ear, Zay and Levi. I'm in their ear all the time about how they conduct themselves or when they go somewhere. So, as I move on with my career, another important thing that, being a professional athlete, I made really, really, really good money. And I had a financial advisor to take advantage of me. And when I had the financial advisor to take advantage of me, it basically wiped me clean. And this is the part of the story that I told you that nobody knew about. So when they did that, you know, at first I didn't know what to do. But before that happened to me, I remember being in church and I remember raising my hand and I remember saying, Lord, test my faith. And I remember, just saying, it's all yours, you know. And I think most people out here, they get so comfortable because when they have a lot of money, it's very easy and it's very comfortable to to go to an event or go to church or praise God, because you have your security. But where is really your security? Your security is in your money. So what happens if that money is taken away from you? What happens? What happens to your faith? What happens to, all the things that you say you believe in? And that really happened to me. That happened to me. At one point, Coach Connors, at one point, and I know you remember when I came to uh, the fitness place in Greenville. We were trying to put something together, and just never really worked out.
Yeah.
At that point, I probably didn't have $1,000 in the bank. I didn't have nothing, and I was just trying to make it. I was so interested in like what is a way that I can rebuild my life. And I'm about to tell you how amazing that this is. And so I'm like, how can I do this? I was trying several different, you know, outfits or how can I make this happen for me? How can I, really get back on my feet? But I would not stop coming to East Carolina games because they've been loyal to me. I never asked East Carolina for nothing. I did have a product that I was trying to sell, and I was trying to get into East Carolina the right way. I was a guy I was just trying to figure out how do I financially succeed again. And I wasn't scared if anybody had found out. I didn't know if anybody even knew. I didn't know. But I wasn't going to shy away from it because this was a part of the test that I went through. This was a part that most people don't want to go through. And so about 2015. It's about 2015, and I have a cousin of mine who I hadn't seen since I was 17 years old. I haven't seen him since I was 17 years old. He gets out of prison. He calls me, and for me, it's like this is my cousin. This is my legitimate first cousin. His mom and my mom are sisters. My biological mom. So I talk to him. I get him on the phone with my family. Get him to know my family, and And to make a long story short, it got to the point where he said, "Can you give me some money?" And I'm like, "Man, I don't have any money to give you." Because at this point, if you're hearing my story, I didn't have any money. So he didn't believe me. He went through so many measures, threatening me, you know, saying that, I'll make up this, I'll tell your wife that, you had relations with your maid or something like that. Because at this point, he's thinking I'm very rich. And, you know, I didn't tell him that I wasn't, and I didn't tell him that I was. It's just that that's what he believed. And so he's from Cleveland, Ohio. He walks into a Cleveland, Ohio police station and files a false police report stating that I tried to hire him to murder my agent.
Oh my God.
And yeah, and this is something you can look up right now. You can look it up. You can go on Google right now. You type in Robert Jones, you type in TMZ, and you can see it. And when he did that, I mean, he took the article and he sent it to TMZ. TMZ posted, and then they hit other publications: ESPN, Washington Post, Dallas Morning News, Raleigh News and Observer. They hit a bunch of different publications. I had family members, people calling me, "Hey man, what the heck is going on with you? Like, you paid a hitman?" And I'm like, "Man, I didn't do that at all." So life seemed like it was just crumbling down on me. I'm like, here it is that I'm struggling, no financial success, you know, financial advisor ripped me off. Um, it's like, it came crumbling down on me. So I'm like, the only life I have is in my kids. And so I'm just really, I'm going to keep pressing, been offered to do, illegal things. I would not do them. I had a gentleman that I knew in Texas that said, "Hey man, if you take this load of stuff to this spot right here, I give you 100 grand." I'm like, "Man, I can't do that, man." As bad as I would have wanted that money, I didn't do that. I didn't do anything that would separate me from my family. I didn't do anything, that violated what God would not want me to do. And the most powerful thing that I felt like that I went through is that I sustained, the road that's less traveled. And I'm not trying to sound religious, but I'm like, it is what it is. It's like I I kept my faith. I believe, and I'm like, I just wasn't going to do anything illegal to get what I need to get. I wasn't going to do anything wrong. I wasn't going to scam somebody. I wasn't going to do these things that would put me in a situation that I would never see my family again. And the amazing part of the story is I move on and I try to just work and I try to just, I'm like, I got faith and I believe. And so I had a friend. My friend happened to be an attorney, and I didn't go see him for this particular reason. But I walk to his office to go see him. He said, "Come on, let's go have lunch." And he's a great guy. His name is Ben Brooks. And we go eat. And he says, "So what's on your mind?" And I said, "Hey, I'm looking for some opportunities. Yeah, I know you work with Krispy Kreme, so forth and so on." And I said, "It's just been tough since the incident happened to me with the whole accusation." And he said, "What accusation?" And when I told him, he said, "Waitress, can we get this food to go?" He says, "Robert, let's go back to my office." We walked back to his office. And he said, did you do this? I said, absolutely not. He says, I wait here. He goes to his office. I'm in the conference room. And then he checks something out and he comes back. He says, go home to your lovely wife. I'll call you in about a week or so. So it was about 2 weeks. He called me and he's like, Robert, I started my own law firm. And I'm like, you did? You quit? He said, yeah, I started my own law firm. So I didn't know what that meant at that time. And I just kind of held it all in. And for me, I'm like, I'm just gonna move on. I didn't know what we are gonna do. Then he calls me in the office, and another 2 weeks later, we sit down. He says, hey, I'm gonna take your case on. I'm like, what case? And he's like, we're gonna sue because I love you and I know you didn't do that. And when I tell you guys, God is amazing. God is amazing. I'm going to land this plane and I'm going to say to you that this dude left his job to take on one client. That client was me. He left his job because he studied the case and he knew that he would win. And we won at the Supreme Court level.
Wow.
Okay. And
that's an incredible story.
And when we look at the whole thing, it's like the story of Job, where I went through so much, and then come out, end up better than what I was before I started. So,
wow.
So to say a second chance, God gave me a second chance. We went to the state Supreme Court and we won. And TMZ.
I'm glad to hear that.
So just to kind of end with this is that, your belief, and I haven't stopped working. I work, me and my wife are empty nest. We love our kids. We trying to go see all of them. We have one daughter that lives here with our granddaughter. We have two grandkids now. Zay has a son. I think I told you that, Coach Connors.
Yes. Yep.
Yep. Zay has a son, and our oldest daughter has a daughter. So we love our grandkids, and we just enjoy, life now, and being the age I am. I'm 53. It just feels better than it felt at 21.
Sure.
I love everything that happened in my life. Did I enjoy every moment? No, but in life, sometimes you go through stuff and you do stuff that you don't have to do. I'm sorry, that you don't like to do, but it's necessary to get to where you want to go. And so that's the thing that I try to relay to my boys that's in training camp. That's the thing I try to relay to, my other kids who may work in regular jobs. It's like, hey, just do what you need to do now because it's a necessity. You got to do it. And then once you get to the point where you don't have to do that, then you can move on to somewhere else. Life brings you a bunch of ups and downs, but for me, that's what football was all about to me. For me, that's what the 4 years I spent at East Carolina was all about. For me, that's what the 10 years in the NFL were all about. There were a lot of ups and downs. It was disappointing to lose the third Super Bowl, or the third championship game against San Francisco when we lost to San Francisco. We won the first one. We won the second one. We lost the third one, and we won the fourth one. And then I move on to St. Louis, and we darn near lose every game. And then the second year in St. Louis, we lose half and we win half. And then we go to Miami. I go to Miami, and then I have the greatest football year career of my NFL career. And 99 just as good. And so is 2000. Um, you know, life has its ups and downs, and that's what football brought me, ups and downs. It's just how you handle it. It's like God God never says that we're not going to go, through the storms. It's just what we're going to do when the storm comes. How do we react? How do we respond? You know, do we lose faith? Do we keep faith? Um, how do we respond to life's ups and downs and tragedies and stuff? We're gonna lose people. We're gonna lose money. We're gonna lose things that are dear to your heart. They're not gonna be there forever. So those are the things that I experienced, because through that time that I went, you know, through the stuff, I lost, my aunt who was my mom. I lost my money. I lost a lot. You know, I had a son that got in trouble at the University of Texas. Can't afford to pay a lawyer, for his actions. So it's like navigating your way through something that is very, very difficult. But do you maintain the same integrity? Do you maintain the same morals that you would if you had everything at your access? So, I can honestly say I went through that, and I can honestly say I came through, clean on the other side, just like Andy Dufresne said.
Yeah, I got you. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yep.
Well, I got a few things that I want to hit before we wrap it up tonight. That's for sure. But wow, I really appreciate so much you sharing all that information and your journey. And I will say this: even when you were having really tough times, and I'm on the outside looking in, but it appeared to me like you were a great dad and a great husband through it all. And I will applaud you for that. I talked to Kevin Colbert, the GM for the Steelers, for many, many years. I had him on a podcast. He retired and started something called Lend a Hand for Steelers that are out there for 4 or 5 years. He said, Coach, the way I can explain this is when the lights go out, these guys get lost. So he has a Zoom call every month, and he's got about 30 guys on there now. And I started it. I don't know if you're aware, I started something, Locker Room for Life, for former ECU football players. I've had 2 of them so far. We got the next one on August 3rd, Zoom call, 7:30 p.m. every first Thursday of the month. There'll be a presentation this time on men's health, and also putting on the armor of God, which is my website, armoredlife.org. So we're going to talk about spiritual battle and how to arm yourself for spiritual battle every day. But, you won that battle. So I applaud that. And I believe that you won it with your faith and also the power of the Holy Spirit. No question in my mind was involved in that. So going back a little bit, I just want to mention, too, that we got a little bit of a common thread. You don't hear the name Pearl very often, but I just want to share with you, my mom's name is Pearl.
Wow.
So we don't hear that name very often. and praise God, praise God for my mom. She's going to be 88 soon and living right here in Greenville with my dad, who was my high school coach. I'm very lucky, very fortunate to have them. Going back to 91 just for a second, I'm talking about, I got in there with Jerry and Sack and all them boys, Dion and old David Daniels. I remember so many guys, Kenny Burnett. You look at Zime Kumalai and Greg Gardill, 2 inside defensive linemen. These cats weighed 241 and 242, and somehow got the job done. And I thought our offensive line and defensive line were basically overachievers that year, and they busted their tails to get the job done.
We had heart, man. We all had heart. Yeah.
So what I wanted to ask you was, and that's kind of what I wanted to ask you, is what were the intangible qualities within the team that you recognize? Sometimes when you don't have all the talent, you rely on skill, will, and perseverance. And that's I heard a military guy say that's what Ukraine is winning on right now is skill, will, and perseverance. So that kind of reminded me of that 91 team.
You know what, Coach Connors, I'm gonna say it because it's a matter of fact. I knew you heard of it wasn't rumors, it was factual that before Bill Lewis got there, when we would lose a game, guys would get in the locker room, and it was more the leaders, and I won't call any names, but there was more the leaders of that team, the juniors and the seniors, and they would say, man, I got the biggest party. I got these girls coming to the room and this and that, and we having this big party. And I just wasn't used to losing. I wasn't used to losing. There were guys, the freshmen that were playing and young guys on our team that we weren't used to losing. So we didn't know I didn't even know how to celebrate when we lost. I just didn't. I didn't know how to celebrate. I wasn't a drinker. I wasn't a smoker. I didn't do none of that stuff. So I didn't even know how to have fun. Hell, I didn't know how to have fun when we won.
Right.
I was just relaxed. So what I'm saying is that I think once those guys got out of there, the core guys of our junior senior group, when I became a junior, George Kuntz was a bona fide leader. He was a bona fide leader. He was one of the guys that I would say that kind of started that trend, of working hard. George used to love the weight room. George loved the weight room. George did everything he was supposed to do to get to where he needed to go. I think he, by going to junior college and learning, and then getting his shot at East Carolina, because I'm sure he had desire to go to a school other than East Carolina, but East Carolina was where he landed. But he was a hard worker, and he busted his butt. And George don't know that he impacted guys like me. He impacted guys like me. I think I was just more physically talented, but George was the beginning of guys that put the work in, that put the time in, and we were going to do what we needed to do. We were all considered not, 5-star. They didn't have star ratings back then, but we weren't 5-star guys. We weren't 4-star guys. We're a bunch of 2 and 3-star guys that had heart and determination. Like, we were passionate about football. We loved football. I loved it. Jeff Blake loved it. Luke Fisher loved it. Deion Johnson loved it. We all loved football. Chris Hall, we loved it. And it started to be a fever, because if you remember, Richard Wright wasn't that really compliant, but then he caught the fever. Then he came on strong. Greg Gardell, he loved it. Zime Kumalai, he loved it. Bernard Carter kind of had that lazy act going, but then he caught the fever. He loved it. Jared Dillon loved it. Sack loved it. Kim Burnett loved it. I mean, just everybody followed the leaders of that junior and senior year, 1990, 1991. They followed the leaders of that team, and we just and I'm not saying it because it's my school, but we understood what bleeding purple was. Um, we knew we were outmatched sometimes. We knew we were, um, you know, probably not the ideal school to go into a place and beat Syracuse. The odds were against us. We know we were not, picked to beat Pitt. The odds were against us. Should have beat Illinois, which I still feel like to a celebrating penalty. Man, you know what I want to say about that.
Yeah.
But South Carolina, beating South Carolina the way we did, like it was just determination. And then we finally had a staff that believed in us. We finally had a staff that believed that we could do it and trusted us. That hung in there with us and gave us all they had. We really had a good coaching staff. We had a great coaching staff. We had coaches on our staff that coached in the NFL. We didn't realize at that time how good they were. We just understood that they gave us their all, and we trusted them and we believed in them, and we just wanted to do it. Size didn't matter. And I think when you got that chemistry, you don't have to be the biggest guy, because Jeff was not the prototype size of a quarterback, but he played like that type of quarterback. We all played like big time football players at the collegiate level, and a lot of teams did not want to play us. They did not want to play us.
No doubt.
And that's why we ended up playing NC State. We played NC State because NC State wanted to show the nation that we'll play them. We'll beat them too. We'll play them. But obviously, the results of that. But nobody wanted to play us. Nobody wanted to play us because it wasn't because they thought that they would get the score ran up on them. They knew they were in for a dogfight.
Yeah.
They knew that. So I think for us, it was just our heart and our determination.
No doubt. Well,
All right.
that number 9 ring ain't the biggest ring I got, but I treasure it the most. Ain't no doubt about that. And
absolutely.
I don't know what it's going to take for ECU to get back to that, but I hope they can get there at some point, because that was the vision, no doubt. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, your family, your boys. There's not too many people that have 3 sons that played in the NFL. And I know that a big part of that, of course, was your influence. And, when I think you brought Caleb to UNC Chapel Hill when I was there, if I'm not mistaken. Was that true?
Yep. That's it. That's true.
And
yep.
I don't know if Zay was with you then, but I remember
Zay didn't come with us. He was at my sister-in-law's house. He was here in North Carolina, but he was at my sister-in-law's house. But it was me and Caleb that came over.
Well, when I first saw Zay, whenever it was, he was very slight. I would have never anticipated the success that he's had. I was so privileged to be able to train him during his career at ECU, and I was so happy to see the progress that he made in the program. And not only did, he came to me one winter and said, "Hey, Coach, I want to gain about 12 or 15 pounds." And, I pretty much shut down all his running. And he worked so hard. We did a little bit of agility work and maybe some short stuff. But, 6-7 weeks later, whatever it was, he had gained that 12 to 15 pounds. He was over 200 pounds. I hadn't timed him. He had run about a 4.58 on that indoor surface, and he lined up and hit a 4.37. And I'm like, wait a second, is my watch right? Because, we didn't do much speed work at all. But because he got strong in the muscle groups it takes to overcome inertia and became more elastic, he got faster. So, I was really so happy to see that result, because everyone could always see how hard that he worked. When you get guys that work that hard, and then the other guys on a team see those results, that's motivation to them as well. So Zay is really an incredible story, and I want to give you props on your influence, of course, on him as he grew up and as he went through his collegiate career.
Isaiah was a very hard worker in high school. He was small for the longest time, but I will tell you, he was the hardest working kid out of all three of the boys. He worked hard. He went outside. We lived on a slight hill. He ran them hills. He lift weights. He would do push-ups in between commercials when we were watching, movies or American Idol. Like, he did all the small stuff. He did the pull-ups, and I bought him a little pull-up bar to put on the door. Like, Isaiah did everything. He would watch film. He listened. He studied. I'm like, he became a smart football player. So by the time he got to college, he could dissect stuff. He could, I would teach him. I'm like, look, I didn't play wide receiver, but I'm gonna tell you what, I've covered some wide receivers. And this is what they're teaching us to do. So as a defender, I'm teaching him that. And then as a wide receiver, if he lines up in the slot, which a lot of linebackers used to cover down on him, I'm like, Isaiah, there should be no linebacker that can cover you, and they always go for the first move. Like, he listened to every little detail that I gave him. And I can't say the other two were that receptive, even though Levi played linebacker. I mean, he freelanced it. But Isaiah is very studious. I would say get that from his mom. He's a nerd playing football, and that's what some people can't figure out about him. Isaiah's going to know more about the guy that's covering him than he knows more about him. He's going to know. He's going to know if that guy is weak, opening to his left or opening to his right. He's going to know it. He is a smart, intelligent football player. You might want to take that segment out of this, right here. It might give away his secret, but he's a smart football player. And the thing that he can do also, and I told him when he was young, I said, learn to play every wide receiver position on the field. Learn what the running back is doing. I said, because when you can do multiple things, you're more valuable to the team. You can play the X, you can play the Z, you can play the Y, you can play the slot, you can play the R, you can play the F. So he knows it all. Just study what everybody's supposed to do. So he's always been that way. He's always been a overachiever. He works his butt off, and every time somebody says something negative against him, he found a way to put that chip on his shoulder, and he wears it into the season. So he went into the Jaguar season last year with that chip on his shoulder, and I think everybody saw the results. And so he's got another one this year that he's carrying on his shoulder in the training camp. Somebody called him a JV football player, in relations to Calvin Ridley. So, he's going to put that chip on his shoulder and just show him how much of a JV player he is.
Right. East Carolina style.
Yes, East Carolina style. So look, man, I want to say this before I get off. I'm not saying this podcast is going to do a whole lot. I've talked to the athletic director. I've talked to head coach Mike Houston. I've talked to them, and I'm like, I was a consensus All-American. I need for East Carolina and the community to push for the College Hall of Fame. We've never had one in our school history. We've never had a College Hall of Fame. I think I'm well deserving of it. And I think it'd be great for the school. It'd be great for me too. It just adds to the history of a small kid that comes from Blackstone, Virginia, sat in his mom's arms while she died from a gunshot wound to, achieving all these things. So, if you know of any people, you got any influence, or if this is going to make a difference, this video, this taping, then I say post it, let people hear it. People need to hear life stories, because what I told you and shared with you guys in this segment, there are some people that go through life like this, and some people give up, and some people see it through. And the ones that see it through, come out clean like Andy Dufresne.
That's right. Well, we're going to try to get it out there to as many people as we can. That's for sure. And
all right, man.
I really appreciate it so much. The Pirate Faithful might have one more question I was thinking about is, how did you and Jeff Blake end up marrying sisters?
I met my wife's sister first. Without going into so much detail.
Yeah.
When I met her, she was already dating someone, but I didn't meet her to date her. He happened to live in my suite, and their relationship didn't work out. And so we remained friends. And meaning me and my wife's sister, we remained friends. And always admire, Jeff Blake. But she would never approach him. So I was kind of like the lobbyist, for where I was like, hey man, hey Jeff, who you dating? So I had to find out if he was dating anybody, because she wasn't trying to intervene or interfere. And just so happened he wasn't dating anybody at that time. And I said, hey, this girl here wants to meet you. So I introduced him. And when I introduced him, here it is, a week or so later, I'm over at her place. He was there as well. And I'm like, who is this girl right here? She's like, that's my sister. And I'm like, that's who I want to talk to. I said, that's who I want to talk to. And then she made the introduction. And so obviously we dated the rest of our college, rest of my college career. And then I proposed to my wife after I got drafted. And, that's how we ended up doing that.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting back in the day when y'all were dating sisters and then ended up getting married. So it worked out very well for you. Yep.
It's unfortunate though that Jeff and Lawana got a divorce, and I don't know if it was meant to be said on here or not, but just didn't want people to get any false ideas or anything like that. Things happen. They are really good friends though after the divorce, but they've moved on in different directions. So that's how it happened. Sure. And everybody stays in contact with each other. Yep.
Well, Robert, thanks so much. I want to be signing off. I'm hoping maybe I'll see you and Carrie one of these days, maybe for lunch or dinner. I'll stay in touch.
Okay, sounds good.
About 3 or 4 days a week.
All right, sounds good, man. Thank you.
Okay, so this is Jeff Connors signing off for Absolute Empowerment. God bless, and we'll see you next week. Thanks a lot.
All right, bye.
You've been listening to Absolute Empowerment with Coach Jeff Connors on The Sports Objective. Join us every Monday night for a new edition of the show. Listen to the show pretty much everywhere podcasts are found. Be sure to follow us on social media at The Sports OBJ on Twitter and TikTok, at The Sports Objective on Instagram. Like and follow our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. As always, we appreciate you listening to the show, and go Pirates!